Waconia reaches back so far in history as a wonderful location to be.
The values, I think, are the same now, and hopefully will be in the future as they were back then. They're passed down from generation to generation.
Before the telephone was invented, before the past 29 presidents took office, before Minnesota even became a state, the city of Waconia was making history as a stomping ground for immigrants and entrepreneurs, home for thousands of close-knit families seeking an ideal way of life. 1857 was the start of something great.
Now, therefore, as mayor of the wonderful community that is the city of Waconia, I hereby proclaim this day, April 13th, 2007, to be the official anniversary of the platting of the city of Waconia and the 150th birthday of our community. Happy birthday, Waconia.
Awesome, thank you.
150 years, a reflection of vision, triumph, and spirit. And still, generations of Waconia families who still live here can share the great historic context for this milestone celebration. Local history buff and longtime lawyer in town, Paul Melkert, has deep roots here. His great-great-grandparents homesteaded a farm in the mid-1800s southwest of the fairgrounds.
And this was just a souvenir of Coney Island. People came from Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Chicago. We'd come up here and be guests at the hotel. And this is just the glory, it's kind of a symbol, the glory of the Coney Island. The island and the lake used to have 48 buildings on it.
The island, now overgrown and full of ruins, was once a major tourist attraction.
There's a feeling about Lake Waconia.
Cindy Mace and her family have owned and operated In-Town Marina for the past 25 years. She says in its heyday, the island was probably busier than we can imagine.
Is that it was beautiful then because it was organized, well-maintained, and it was well-run. And I think the scents and the smells and stuff must have been gorgeous. There was a huge dormitory that people stayed overnight in. And then there was the lodge. And in the lodge, they had full settings. They had always white linen tablecloths on the tables. They had a smokehouse going at all times that I'm sure smoked fish and pork and all kinds of meats. There were 2 beautiful boathouses. All of these things were architecturally beautifully done, so it must have just been absolutely gorgeous.
This piece of history, vital for transporting visitors to the island, was donated to the Mace family by a third-generation area resident. It was salvaged over 70 years ago and protected for all these years.
The ship's wheel came from quite a bit past in the early 1900s from a boat that was commissioned by the Winesrell family. We assume it was either the Klondike or we think it's the Chief. Those are the 2 names of the boats, of launch boats that were used to transport passengers that came by rail to Waconia to go to the island on Lake Waconia.
Those were the days.
Will Yetzer, a 4th-generation Waconian, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and Sesquicentennial Parade Grand Marshal, remembers those boats. He's lived here all his life. He watched people get off the train, unload their suitcases, and walk down to the boat landing.
Because we used to bum rides just to help the guy that was piloting it, help the people out of the boat and this and that. See, the island was quite a place, in its day. And in 1903, when football started at the University of Minnesota, the Gopher football team come out and practiced on the east end of it.
It's something that's interesting about the lake. It always answers a need in history. It has really been a lot of things to a lot of different forebears of ours.
Wherever you walk, some Indians walked there before you.
The Chippewa and the Sioux, they'll say in the history books, it's the Dakota, would use this as a hunting and fishing grounds in this entire vicinity. But this particular lake was very important to them.
They left artifacts, burial mounds, and the legacy of Mayday Waconia, their name for the lake, which means out of water comes life. So many lives influenced and helped shape Waconia as we know it today, from Native Americans to immigrants.
These were good, basic people that came from Europe. There were the Germans and the Irish and the Scandinavians and that, and they came here to have a new life.
They were very productive people in town, very religious. And then the Swedes certainly grew wonderful apple orchards that exist today and honored.
Also honorable is the work ethic and perseverance of Waconians over the years. Take Waconia Lake ice harvesters. At the turn of the century, before the days of refrigeration, this was big business, shipping ice. These men risked their lives and their poor, cold hands.
And these tile were very rough on your hands, and he'd take us kids along, and we had to help them. And they didn't have these tools to lift up the tile at that time, and our hands were all bloody. And in those days, that was the story. You helped out.
Yeah, that was the story. You persevered in everything. In 1904, a tornado blew through town and caused great devastation. The city band together to rebuild.
Yeah, this steeple was built with the original church, and then in the 1904 tornado, it was blown over. The steeple hit the ground, broke, and they had the village clock, and then although it was a church, the city put up the funds to put up this clock so northeast, south, and west, in all directions, people in town would know exactly what time it was. It's very important to the community.
Waconians had a strong sense of community. Back in 1914, the city hosted a band tournament that attracted an estimated 10,000 people, an event that lives on today. From celebrations to picnicking, people always gathered. Imagine the streets of Waconia as the town grew and prospered.
They were gas lights on the street. Gas lights, and a fellow would come at night and light them. Yeah, the lights. And in the morning, I think he'd go around and just extinguish them.
Now think of the countless ties residents today have to the people and places of the past. The local jewelry store in town, a fourth-generation operation, is the longest-running family-owned business in Waconia. Many other businesses have deep roots as well. The grocery, the bank. Paul Melkert has a piece of that history. It's over 100 years old.
The currency at that time could be issued by the bank, but it was signed by the cashier and the president of the bank. It was issued by the First National Bank of Waconia. This did not come out of Washington.
Pieces of history with cultural meaning behind them. And countless individuals today have so much to share about Waconia's past. This is worth celebrating. And like the forebears did so often, we gather as a community and honor this important milestone.
I was elected to speak by her. Well, sisters are for. Yeah.
Hot dish and jello, nothing more Minnesotan.
Napkin, fresh napkin. We're very ready.
To Sharon Giesen. Sharon is a retired Waconia School District cook and is the only qualified judge that we have today. Welcome, Sharon.
Look around and break it down and you'll understand. I want you inside and out. Nobody counts what you're all about. What's on your mind? What's on your lips? Who in the world knows you best?
It's okay.
The masthead in the old Waconia Patriot said, Paradise of the Northwest. And although it doesn't say Paradise in the Northwest, I personally feel it still is Paradise in the Northwest. Because I defy you to find a place that has more appeal for what I want to get out of life.
It's just been something for so many people.
And they have all made a footprint on Waconia's history. As future generations walk in their footsteps, the meaning of Waconia will expand, connections will deepen, and more pieces of history will be shared. The future of Waconia's history begins with a remarkable heritage to guide us.